For any student who is interested in drawing or painting a face or the human figure, what I'm about to teach you is actually such a huge important thing. And at some point, you should memorize the facial proportions because it will serve you well your entire career, whether you want to be an artist or whatever. This is stuff that you should know. So here's the first step, and we're going to start off with the shape of a head. Kind of looks like an upside down egg or kind of like a very geometric potato. I like to start by dividing the face in half vertically so that I can make sure that the face is symmetrical on both sides. We're drawing the face from the front. We're actually not going to be painting on this one. And then you need to find the halfway point. I actually use my ruler to measure out. So my head measures from the top to the chin. It measures 4 inches. So that way it's easily dividable by 2. So I just marked it at the 2-inch mark. So it kind of looks like a crosshair. You have the vertical and you have the horizontal. Once you have that eye line, which is the halfway point horizontally in the head, then you're going to figure out where to place the hairline. And you just kind of have to guess. You want to picture a head of hair, but maybe picture a buzz cut. Where does that hairline actually start? And then you're going to go from the hairline that you created to the chin, and you're going to divide it up into thirds. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and outline this in Posca markers just to make sure it's visible on the screen. And because Posca markers are pretty fun to use. If you don't know what they are, they're a pen that has acrylic in it. So it's basically a watered down acrylic like the acrylic we're using. It's just in a pen form. Super fun. So here it is divided into thirds. The top third is where we will find the eyebrow line. The middle third is where we find the bottom of the nose. It is also a super wise idea to write all of these proportion rules down. In fact, that's a requirement. You should be writing them down. It's all on that kind of cheat sheet, sort of, but you should write down where things go. Eyebrow line, nose line, eyes are halfway in the head, so that way you can start to memorize and familiarize yourself with these proportion rules, how one thing relates to another, because it's very easy to get a feature wrong, and then it kind of throws off the whole face, especially if we're talking about likeness. Likeness means how close does it resemble that specific person you're trying to draw or paint. You'll probably know what I mean if you've ever done a portrait of a relative. Super important that you get the likeness correct because everyone's going to tell you that it doesn't look like so-and-so. Next up is taking the bottom of the nose to the chin, so that distance, bottom of the nose, chin, dividing that into thirds as well, because on the top third, you can find where the mouth goes. And I would also write that down too. Okay, so I like to put little dashes down to kind of represent things. So there's a little dash for the nose, a little dash for the line in between the two lips. And then I did a little bit of the bridge of the nose, just want to make sure it's equal distance on the left side and the right side, that they're the same. And then we're going to go in and do the eyes. Just remember that the eyes, you can fit one eye in between the two eyes. And you can also, if you take the width of the nose at the widest part, so at the bottom of the nose, that should also equal the length of one eye. Crazy, huh? We measure a lot with eyes, and if we're drawing a human body, you actually measure a lot with the head. So I'm drawing this loosely because I want to make corrections. I actually got the face a little bit too wide, so I'm going to correct that later, but it's all good as long as the overall proportions are correct. Now generally you can fit 5 human eyes in the head, so on that eye line. Just for the heck of it, we're going to go ahead and outline the nose. When you're doing nostrils, it's really important that you don't do them as circular holes, that you actually make them more like a teardrop shape, or I tell myself it's like 2 candy canes that have been knocked over sideways. So it's very slight, it's not as open as most people assume. When you're doing the lips, the shape of the lips kind of looks like a flattened M, so there's kind of two hills on the top lip, and there's like a little bit of like where the two lips meet, there's a little bit of a curve there too. You can go ahead and draw in the eyebrows, the iris. I try and figure out the placement of the iris by dividing the eye in half, and I'll put like a vertical line there, almost like they're demon possessed, but it helps me to figure out the center of the eye. Otherwise, you could have a wandering eye. And then I use plumb lines. That's what those vertical lines I'm dropping down are for. So the one in the center of the eye determines the width of the mouth. If you take the corner of the eye, the one that's closest to the ear, and drop a straight line down on either side, so on both eyes you do this, that should be the thickness of the neck. A lot of artists tend to make the neck too thin, but you have to understand it has to support the weight of the human head. Now, if you have extra time, gussy this up, make it look more like a real person. I decided to play with the Posca markers and give this person some hairs and a little bit of a personality, so it wasn't just like this stiff model. But use this as a guide. Start to memorize these proportion terms. It will save you time, and again, it's something that I always ask myself, and I go through like a checklist of all these proportion rules. And guess what? There's more than this. There's a whole bunch more.